See, I never realized that people outside are much different than the people inside. People inside, if you lie, you get punched. And when I got out, all your children would come to me because they never had anybody tell them the truth.
At the last minute, when Manson learns he's going to be paroled, he actually tells the authorities, don't let me go, I don't think I can handle it out there. But it's too late, prisons are overcrowded, and so they send him out anyway. But that one moment, he's being honest. If you let me out, I think I'm going to do the same things that I've been doing or even more.
The city of Los Angeles has had another multiple murder.
Shot and stabbed to death.
Another bizarre murder.
8 murders
Their
without
back
reason.
brutally cut by a whip.
Charles Manson, the cult leader accused of murder.
Wish they'd listened to him.
Manson and the CIA?
Yeah.
Did I tell you about this?
No, yeah.
He did crazy shit. They were all on acid. They committed murder. He directed them to commit murder. The CIA doctor was a psychologist or a psychiatrist dosing people up with LSD, running studies on prisoners, getting students to run studies, getting scientists to run studies. Not even knowing they were doing it through the CIA. The CIA's MK Ultra project, through LSD and hippies, LSD and mind control.
Manson was tied up with the CIA?
Oh my God. Almost definitely a part of these fucking psychedelics, LSD experiments that they were doing on hippies. Trying to get someone to commit murder and not even realize they did it. He violated his parole. Almost definitely allowed him to get out, let him loose, let him free, supply him with acid.
When I stand on the mountain and I say, do it, it gets done. If it don't get done, then I'll move on it. And that's the last thing in the world you want me to do.
I knew that people would die. I knew that there would be killing.
Our acts cannot be forgiven.
Every one of you out there has tried to kill me for the last 25 years, and I'm still here. Ha, ha, ha. Now what?
What's more, Charles Manson had never known life with a real family. That would make a family of his own very appealing. Prison may have meant a life of little change for Charles Manson, but life outside was changing radically. It was a far different world now from the one he'd known before prison, and it was one where his particular skills would serve him well.
By 1967, if you came to San Francisco, you needed to wear a .45 in your belt. It had changed that fast. The kids were still coming from all over the United States with the same set of expectations, but the welcoming committee was very, very different.
Summer in San Francisco, there was a philosophy here that was totally revolutionary that they'd not heard before, and this was the epicenter of it. A lot of very young, creative, exploring people came there, but then you started to see a shift where more disturbed, sicker, more drug-involved people started to come.
The hallucinogenic drugs like LSD were being replaced by stimulant drugs, speed particularly, that led to compulsion and paranoia. And innocence was giving way to violence. This was the scene which Charles Manson entered on his release from prison in 1967.
His first follower and disciple, he found her at the University of California, Berkeley campus. She was a librarian. Her name was Mary Bruner. He talked her into letting him sleep at her house for a few nights. That arrangement then changed into becoming permanent. He then met another woman named Lynette Foreman. She was a runaway teenager, and he convinced her to live with her and Bruner, the librarian. Manson soon then began to attract large crowds of listeners and some dedicated followers. He targeted individuals for manipulation who were emotionally insecure and who were outcasted by society.
He said, so your father just kicked you out of the house? And that started it.
Lynette Squeaky Frome joined up with Manson early on.
It was easy to talk to him. And we talked on a number of levels. His mind intrigued me.
Charlie was what he needed to be at any given time.
Pat Krenwinkel was another early member of Manson's growing family.
I met Charlie when I was living at the beach with my sister, and she came home and said to go down to a friend's house, which I did, and Charlie was there, and he was playing the guitar. And so I was introduced to him there. And that night, we slept together, and I felt really loved by him almost immediately. Mostly because I think at that point I was really desperate for someone to care. When we made love, all I remember is just crying and crying to this man. I mean, it was like, because he said, "Oh, you're beautiful." I couldn't believe that. I just started crying.
Manson's family grew to include men. One of them was the young all-American Texan.
He was like Johann Liebert, the greatest anime villain of all time. He's like an anime character, but this is real, and he was in fiction. I made a video about him. Link is in the description. Check it out. It's really fascinating, and it's really amazing. You would love it. So where were we? Yeah, he targeted emotionally insecure people and people who were rejected by society, social outcast. Then after he picked his targets, he would make them totally submit to his will. He would reprogram them, their minds, by the use of LSD and drugs, which would cause hallucination, and also by practicing some unconventional sexual practices on them. By doing that, he would turn his followers into empty vessels, and they would accept anything that Charles Manson poured into them. A fellow member of the Manson family named Paul Watkins, he testified that Manson would encourage the group to take huge doses, huge strips of LSD, and he would take lower doses himself to keep his wits about him and to be conscious while brainwashing them. Charles' trip was to program us all to submit to his will, he claimed.
Charlie used sex for, number one, when people would come and he wanted power over them, men, he would offer them whatever women he had. And he had certain women he always put out front, which he called his front street girls. They were the ones that he thought were the most beautiful, the ones that would be the most enticing. And that's what he would do. I mean, he was an excellent pimp.
Charles Manson was not only attracting followers, he was also exercising more and more control.
Whatever he believed, I would believe. And I would say, and I would spout off.
I began to get increasingly uncomfortable with the amount of control and the way in which he used them. And you could see his sense of power and control growing. I saw him on a weekly basis. He would bring the girls into the office. It was a big occasion. I would go out to a home and see them. There was always that string. There was always some reality.
They came to the ranch, lady. I didn't go to them, they came to me.
By the end of the stray, in height, in April 1968, Manson attracted 20 or so followers.
You know, all very fun in the beginning, innocent.
They were all under direct supervision of a parole officer named Roger Smith and his staff. They all began to follow Charles Manson, and they joined the cult of the Manson family. The core members of Manson family were Charles Watson. He was a musician and a former actor. Another one, Bobby Bullesin. She was a former musician too, and she was a pornographic actor. Some names include Bruna, Susan Atkins, Linda, Patricia, Lizelle Houghton. His member consisted of children from 15-year-old to teenagers. Also middle-aged men, but most of his followers were teenagers. That included teens who were really smart. They outclassed everyone in grades, and they were really good at sports too. They were really good students, and they would have had a brighter future, but they came under the influence of the most wicked man of their time. Under his influence, the Manson family grew even furthermore through drug use and prostitution. He was such a bad influence that even he would rape his own fellow members of the Manson family. He raped a teenager girl. It was later revealed in the courtroom by her to the jury during the trial of the Manson family murders. She spoke against Charles Manson himself and all the members of the family.